Earth is a drag. Everyone's on lockdown, so to get away from your troubles for a bit, you've taken a job as an interstellar smuggler. But every ship is bound to get searched by the space fuzz eventually, and now, unfortunately, you're about to find out the hard way that notorious Outer Rim crime boss Jabba the Hutt has no time for smugglers who drop their shipments at the first sign of an Imperial cruiser. As penalty for failing such a simple job, Jabba has put a price on your head so large that every bounty hunter in the galaxy will be looking for you. While you might stand a chance against small-timers like Greedo if you're lucky enough to shoot first, how do you think you'll fare against one of the most feared bounty hunters in the galaxy? That's right, we're taking a look at what would happen if you were to face off against none other than Boba Fett. So Boba Fett is on your trail, coming to collect the price that's been put on your head. You can always just wait for him to track you down and come quietly. After all, the Bounty Hunters Guild has strict rules that its hunters only kill their targets as a last resort, so maybe the worst Boba could do is capture you and haul you back to Tatooine. Of course, then you'd be at Jabba's mercy and likely fed to his personal Sarlacc, where you'll spend 1,000 years getting digested. Fun! Your only choice is to meet Boba head-on. But before your fight even starts, you must, as always, know your enemy before you can fight your enemy. From Attack of the Clones, we know that Boba is a younger clone of an infamous bounty hunter, Jango Fett, the original genetic template for the clones that formed the Grand Army of the Republic. At Jango's request, Boba was left unaltered. While the other clones had accelerated aging, behavioral conditioning, and were fitted with control chips, Boba was instead given to Jango by the Kaminoan cloners in addition to his regular payment. So surely taking on Boba would be easier than fighting a clone trooper bred specifically for fighting on the front lines? Sadly, not. If that was the case, then Boba wouldn't have the deadly reputation that he does, and you wouldn't be so worried about him coming after you. Raised as a son by Jango, Boba was taught a number of his father's skills from a young age, including how to handle a blaster. You, with your puny Earth-based education, will at best be able to match his blaster with a .45 Desert Eagle, while a formidable sidearm that can punch a hole through a cow up against a blaster that shoots small bursts of particle beams at, well, those particles should be moving at the speed of light or really close to it, but in the Star Wars universe even lasers which are made of light don't really go the speed of light. Go figure. Either way, you're boned in the sidearm department because blaster beats dumb Earth tech firearm any day of the week. Boba Fett is also an expert martial artist, given his training by Jango Fett, who was himself one of the best hand-to-hand fighters in the galaxy. In fact, it would take the likes of Jedi Master Mace Windu to take down Jango Fett. So even if you had all the Muay Thai training in the world, unless you're packing some force powers, your odds of beating Boba in a stand-up brawl are pretty low. But like we learned in the horrible prequel movies, the Force is basically space herpes, because what allows you to wield its powers are microscopic intelligent life forms known as midichlorians. Since midichlorians are basically in every life form, start licking doorknobs and licking public toilet seats to bump up that midichlorian count, and you'll soon be wielding Force lightning like a pro. If ingesting large amounts of intelligent bacteria isn't your thing though, there's a chance you could make a break for it. Or rather, there would be a chance if Boba wasn't such a skilled pilot. With one of the most infamous ships in the galaxy, another talent taught to him by Jango, Boba Fett learned to fly the Slave One after he inherited it from his dear old clone dad. Slave One quickly became a feared sight to many throughout the galaxy, thanks in part to it becoming synonymous with its equally feared pilot. The ship itself has a wingspan of almost 70 feet and is currently hurtling through the sky toward your location at speeds of up to 621 miles per hour, while traveling within a planet's atmosphere. But it's not just Slave One's size, speed, and pilot that are cause for concern. It's also armed to the teeth, thanks to the various upgrades and improvements made by Boba and his dad over the years. Currently aimed directly at you are the ship's most noticeable weapons, the twin blaster cannons capable of rotating a full 360 degrees, but those are just the weapons visible to the naked eye. The Slave One also sports a number of concealed armaments, including 2 missile launchers stowed under the primary blaster cannons, hidden secondary laser cannons located underneath the cockpit in the center of the ship's main body, and perhaps most deadly of all, the payload of seismic charges. As seen during Jango's dogfight with Obi-Wan Kenobi, a single sonic blast from one of those charges is powerful enough to reduce asteroids to crumbling debris, and would likely make quick work of you if Boba decided to drop one from the air and call that a job well done. Your only hope of surviving a flyby from Boba Fett in Slave One is to find somewhere to hide, a building with overhead cover, and pray that he's come to capture you and not kill you. Of course, taking Boba on face-to-helmet presents a whole host of new challenges. For starters, that armor of his. While it might look dented and worn, it's still tougher than most. While Fett himself isn't one, his armor is inspired by the Mandalorians, warriors famous for their fighting prowess and shows with terrible Season 1s, and their armor is fashioned from one of the strongest metals in the galaxy, Beskar steel. Capable of withstanding extreme damage, Beskar armor is even capable of protecting its wearers from direct blaster fire, so the chance of any weapon you could quickly get your hands on being strong enough to even scratch it are slim. Even though there's some debate as to whether Boba's armor is made of real Beskar steel or the weaker alloy known as Durasteel, it's safe to say that it's protected him long enough to track you down. Maybe a well-timed stab with a small blade aiming for the gaps in his armor anywhere where cloth is visible under the plating might be your best option, providing you can avoid Boba's arsenal of weapons for long enough. Thanks to his father's training and spending his formative years in the company of notorious bounty hunters like Aurra Sing, BOSSK, and Dengar, Boba Fett has a proficiency with a wide array of different weapons. He famously favored the EE-3 carbine rifle, a weapon similar in design to the E-11 blasters used by the Imperial Stormtroopers. Fett personally modified his rifle, adding a scope and a stock for better long-distance shooting. So probably best to keep your head down unless you want Boba Fett to blast your head clean off. The EE-3 is capable of firing in a 3-round burst of blaster fire, and while real-world lasers, given that they're a form of light, can often be deflected with a reflective surface, we don't know the full extent of how strong those discharged from a blaster in the Star Wars universe are, so reaching for a mirror might only be as effective as using a shield made of paper. But the EE-3 is nothing compared to one of Boba Fett's other famous weapons you could be staring down the business end of. Boba Fett has also been known to wield a 2-pronged Ambin Phase Pulse blaster rifle, an almost identical weapon to that carried by Din Djarin in Disney Plus's The Mandalorian. The rifle can discharge a shock strong enough to electrocute and subdue large beasts like Ravanox or Pana dragons when used as a melee weapon, but being zapped and knocked out cold would be the kindest way Boba could use this weapon against you. A rubber suit might protect you from the massive electric blast, but it'll do little to stop a blaster to the face. Ever wonder why Darth Vader himself gave Boba Fett the warning no disintegrations when hunting for Han Solo and the crew of the Millennium Falcon? Well, that's because the energy beam that the Ambin blaster rifle fires is much more concentrated than that of a standard blaster, enough to disintegrate organic matter on contact, reducing your body to atoms in the air and leaving your clothes in a heap on the floor. Luckily for you, Boba Fett has only been known to use this weapon around Life Day. It's something of a holiday special in that regard, so you might manage to escape a cruel death by disintegration if you're going up against Boba anytime well before the holidays. Now, even if you were able to get close enough to Boba to disarm him, let's say you've knocked his EE-3 out of his reach, you'd be foolish to think Boba Fett is ever truly unarmed. Those gauntlets of his aren't just for show. In fact, they're as dangerous as any blaster. Boba's wrist gauntlets, like the rest of his armor, are inspired by the Mandalorians and are almost identical to Mandalorian vambraces. These were designed to be used by the warriors of the Mandalorian Creed in a number of combat scenarios, including fighting Jedi Knights, and as we mentioned before, the Jedi have the Force as their ally, which is a luxury you won't be able to call upon in an up-close sparring match with Boba Fett. Unless, you get to licking doorknobs and toilet seats. Hey, we didn't make the rules, George Lucas did, so go post your YouTube comments on his channel. Like a number of Mandalorian vambraces, Boba's come equipped with an array of useful tools, like a whipcord launcher. Much like a high-tech lasso, this would likely have you ensnared and struggling to move in seconds. But if you're fast enough, take a tip out of Luke Skywalker's playbook and try cutting yourself free. Even if you haven't got a lightsaber, a knife might get you out. But act quickly because you really won't like what's waiting for you on Boba's other wrist. If you can't stand the heat, stay away from the ZX miniature flamethrower, capable of casting a 16-foot spray of fire that would likely roast you alive. Real-world flamethrowers require large, heavy tanks of flammable liquid as fuel, slowing one's movement while carrying it. Boba doesn't have that problem though. However, if you were able to somehow get the fire to blow backward toward him, maybe by getting somewhere with strong winds, you could use this iconic weapon and the elements against the bounty hunter. It might not melt his armor, but that cape he wears certainly isn't fireproof. At this point, escape might be your only option, getting to somewhere fast where Boba Fett can't reach. Unfortunately, even if you have the high ground, it's far from over. Boba Fett famously wears a Z6 jetpack, designed to carry its user into the air either to quickly cover long distances in a single bound or for sustained continuous flight. Either way, there's nowhere you can run to that Boba Fett can't follow. The jetpack itself houses a Z6 fine-bore missile, which can be programmed to explode on impact, so you better hope it isn't being pointed at you. While this would provide Boba with an obscene tactical advantage, it's worth remembering that a jetpack is a heavy piece of gear. Even the real-world JB-10 jetpack created by Jetpack Aviation weighs 83 pounds. That's a lot to carry, even for someone like Fett. But there's one other advantage, one tiny chance you can take that may give you an opportunity to ground him long enough to get away and live to tell the tale. So Boba has you on the ropes, and almost dead to rights, meaning you have just one more chance to escape with your life. Fortunately for you, the T-shaped visor in that helmet doesn't offer much in the way of peripheral vision. Just like in Return of the Jedi, your best bet for taking Boba Fett is to do so from behind. Now for the finishing move. Fett's preferred model of jetpack, the Z6, is notoriously vulnerable to external damage. With a well-aimed blow, use a piece of scrap, heavy enough rock, or even a stick, you could cause his jetpack to malfunction, sending him careening through the air and hopefully colliding with a nearby wall or sail barge, or maybe straight into the mouth of a Sarlacc. A collision like that would hopefully leave Fett unconscious, and at a high speed it would probably cause a great deal of bodily harm. While his armor might take the brunt of the damage, Boba would still be dealing with a few broken bones and a loss of dignity at best. After that, it's up to you what to do next. I suppose you can always finish Boba off, although that runs the risk of potentially angering Jabba even further, so maybe it would be best just to leave Boba to lick his wounds and run back to Jabba's palace with his tail between his legs. After all, he's pretty soon to be due to fall into the Sarlacc, where he'll be slowly digested over 1,000 years, and no one could survive that. Well, almost no one. We hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to check out more in our You vs. series. Ever wondered how you would fare if you were to take on some other famous hunters? Check out You vs. the Predator, or click this other video instead.